Gmar Chatima Torah. Baruch Hashem. We are 3+ days into Aseret Yemei Teshuvah. First and foremost, we have to thank Hashem that we had Rosh Hashanah. We were able to be in shul on Rosh Hashanah and pray, and I think now we don't take it so for granted anymore. After last year, some people had to go to shul wearing costumes and masks and other things. This year, people were able to be in shul normally and to pray, and it's we understand that there's a thank you. And naturally, after fast days, we normally don't have classes when they come out on Thursdays because most people want to eat. But Baruch Hashem, this idea came to mind on Rosh Hashanah. Being that tonight's the outside of the Baal Shem Michelshtadt, so I was thinking if I don't come to give a class, so what am I going to do? Make a Suda in Lakewood, Glinada. So instead, we'll make the Suda here, and we'll be able to eat and learn, and we'll have a win-win situation for everybody.
And I didn't fly to Germany.
So, and I didn't fly to Germany. Thank you, Shal. Yeah. So thank you for all those that also contributed to make this happen. This was a large expense, and the zchut of the tzaddik, Rabbi Yitzchak Aya, Mechune Zekelei, Ben Ramat Tityahu, should be a Melitzioche, on all the Mishtatfim, and all the Mishtatfim in every way, shape, and form, especially those who contributed financially to the cause. Thank you very much. May the zchut of the tzaddik stand, Be'ezrat Hashem, for all of you. And we should have a Gmar Chatima Tova, and a Shana Tova M'vorechet, all the good news in the world. Amen v'amen. It's either today or tonight. It was the outside of a gentleman who, in the shul we knew, he also didn't have family members, so it's important to do mitzvot and to learn Torah, Lilu Nishmato. His name was Rav Avram Yishayahu ben Regina Malka. Zecher Tzadik Livracha. So it's Neshama Shav and Aliyah and Shamayim b'zchut HaTorah v'ezrat Hashem. So everybody in his life has different things that he connects to. That's just the nature of people. Kal v'chomer, Jews, observant Jews, have even more alleys of ways that they connect to different things. It's no secret, throughout my many years of speaking, I discussed this in different contexts many times. Personally, one of my strong connections that I've had embedded in me from a young age, and honestly I don't even know where it came from, was the kivot tzadikim. To the point that it's almost an addiction. It's I've always, even from a very young age, always wanted to pray like Kivot tzadikim. Kivot tzadikim is one of the things that really the source is a pasuk. Right, the pasukim teach us that Kalev went to pray al kivrei avot. Yeshua got a blessing from Moshe Rabbeinu. Kai Yoshiacha me'atzat meraglin. Kalev had to fend for himself. So he went to, what did he do to fend for himself? He went to pray al kivrei avot. And from here we learn that there's a very big power in the prayer of by kivrei tzadikim. It goes so far that al pi halacha, a person is not allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael. Can't go to Chutz La'aretz. There's only 3 reasons why a person is allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael. Yeah, we should all ask ourselves, so how are we here tonight, right? We're not in Eretz Yisrael. That's a tough question. You have to have a valid answer to be here. So in Halacha it says primarily there's 3 reasons. The Rambam discusses this at length because the Rambam left Israel to go to Egypt. And he asks about himself, how am I allowed to go to Egypt? There's a double problem. Number 1 is leaving Israel. Number 2 also, you're not allowed to go to Egypt since Yetziat Mitzrayim. So the Rambam spoke about how is he allowed to leave Israel and we go to Egypt. So the Rambam just explains what the Gemara already says, but he breaks it down to halacha. There are 3 primary reasons, which obviously are categories, and then there's subcategories to them, that a person's allowed to be outside of Eretz Yisrael. One of them is Lisa Isha. If a person has trouble finding a wife in Israel and in Chutz La'aretz it's going to be easier, or vice versa, a husband, whatever. So then he could go to Chutz La'aretz, or for Talmud Torah. Talmud Torah is not only the learning of Torah, which obvious, that's simple, but a lot of Israelis that weren't observant and now started being more observant find it much harder to be observant in Israel. Because over there they have their family that's less observant and social pressures and other things and whatever. And it's hard for them. It's a constant battle. So they feel that if they go to a different country and they start a new life, it'll be easier for them because they won't have those pressures. So that's begeder, that's within the criteria of Talmud Torah. That's also part, it's to be able to keep Torah mitzvot. And then the third situation is the third situation is the tzorch parnasah. And the majority of American Jewry, that I'm not speaking for everybody, but that's what it seems like. The reason why we're all here at the end of the day is because of the heter parnasah. Because more or less we have jobs and education, other things over here, and we find it easier to make a living here. And as a result, that's and the way I know that this is very, not just my theory and not just something that is a personal thing, is because I've seen, I'm old enough to have gone through a few financial cycles in the United States, and I've seen every time there's a big financial collapse, or a crash as they call it, is normally the year that there's the most people that migrate to Israel, that make aliyah. So you see clearly that what's keeping them here is parnasa, and the second they don't have parnasa here, they go back to Israel. So obviously that's really the heter that we're relying on, that it's tzorch parnasa, so maybe we're able to be here. So this is clear in the Rambam, and it's clear in Halacha and the Poskim. Those are the three general categories. The Chida traveled the world. The Chida wrote a sefer about his travels. More than one sefer, but one specific sefer just about the travels, and one about things that he learned during his travels. And in his sefer, he discusses about himself what his justification for traveling the world was. And he writes different things. I'm not going into all of them. But one of them that he writes is that he went to visit kivrot tzadikim, the graves of tzadikim in Chutz La'aretz, outside of Eretz Yisrael. And as a result, being that he was going to visit the graves of tzadikim, you're allowed to go to Chutz La'aretz to visit the grave of a tzaddik. That's what he writes to Halacha. And many other poskim afterwards quoted him and brought it to Halacha as well. By the way, yesterday, 2 days ago, there was, I don't know how many thousands, but I'm going to just give a rough guess, 30 to 40,000 Israelis that left Israel and went to Uman. It's Chutz La'aretz. Now, I'm not talking about Uman for Rab Nachman and Rosh Hashanah, that's, everybody should do whatever he feels more is going to be most beneficial to him and his family spiritually. But Stam, how is it allowed at all? Can't leave Israel. So the answer is because they're going to a holy place, kever of a tzaddik, so they rely on this chida and many other poskim with them that say this. There's also a very nice sefer that was written by a Chabad rabbi. He was the Chabad rabbi of Frankfurt back in the day. Today he's still a rabbi in Frankfurt, but he's more independent. His name is Rabbi Raskin. He wrote a sefer called Kivrot Tzadikim Ba'Ashkenaz, the graves of the holy rabbis that are buried in primarily Germany, but other places as well in Europe. And in the Hagdama to that sefer, he has a long piece on explaining the heter at all for an Israeli person. He happens to be Israeli himself originally, to leave. So he was allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael because he went to teach Torah in Germany, whatever. He went on a shlichut. But other people, the heter that they're allowed in order to go to Kivot Tzadikim. When the Abraham Accords came out, so there were mixed feelings amongst the Talmidei Chachamim in the world about it. Some thought it was a very good thing because hopefully it'll prevent bloodshed and other things like that. Let's hope. I don't know. We didn't see the results yet, but we hope it will be. Might even be good for the Israeli economy in the long run. So there were very nice elements to it. And other Gdolei Yisrael were very disappointed that this happened. Because now there's a new hotspot vacation. And plenty of Israelis are going to leave Eretz Yisrael with no heter to leave Eretz Yisrael. It's going to cause a big Michelshtadt. They're going to lose Kedushat Haaretz over nothing. And it bothered them. They weren't happy about it. But so I think the joke goes is now we just have to figure out which rabbi is buried there, and then we could justify going to Dubai. But they still didn't figure it out. But anyway, so Hashem, I don't know. I really, a lot of things in my life, I know where it came from. This, I don't know where it came from. My grandfather, which is really who I tried to emulate most of my life, never went to Kivot Tzadikim. I think there was only once in his life that he went to Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. And a handful of times that he went to the Kotel, it was very rare that he went anywhere. So it definitely didn't come from family, in that way. For some reason, I don't know. I always felt a strong connection. Specifically, the Baal Shem from Michelshtadt. Initially, I got there not even because of me, because of my mom. And we got advice from, my mom was pregnant and there was some medical complications and it wasn't simple. And Rav Vozna Zitzal gave advice to my father that we should go pray by the Baal Shem Michelshtatt's grave, because over there we see Yeshuot, over there we see miracles. That's how I got there the first time, as a result of that. And then from there, I don't know, I lost count by now, but definitely over 150 times I've been there. And I can write 150 separate stories, literally 150 separate stories about each time that I was there. It's a phenomenon. To the point, there are many goyim, lahavdil, that are frequent visitors of this grave of this tzaddik. Because a lot of what we know about him doesn't even come from Jewish literature. It comes from the goyim. The Germans have a lot that they wrote in their history books about this rabbi. He had a very big impact in Germany on many things, primarily in mental health. He was considered the guru of mental health. He was able to heal people that had severe mental illnesses. We're talking about the end of the 1700s. It's not today. It's a completely different era in that subject. And they had a great deal of respect for him in the German medical literature. And a lot that we know about his life and different parts of his life and things actually is sourced from there. Comes from their writings that they've written a lot. I can't say, now again, I'm not saying this for sure because I wasn't by every keva of every tzaddik in the world, but at least from my experience from the kivot tzaddikim that I've been, the only keva that the rabbi himself said, I think, to write clearly by his grave that v'rabim noshu al yado, the people that come to him will have a Yeshua, I think the only one is him. I don't think anybody else ever did that historically. That's a very powerful statement to write. There have been many that promise different things. If you come to my grave, then this, then that. Many. All the way down to recent generations. But that clearly to just write a blanket statement, v'rabim noshu al yado. On my mom's side, my mother's father is German. He's a Holocaust survivor. I said things from him many times in classes. And before I went the first time, even though it was for my mother felt that being that he's a Holocaust survivor, he may have a sensitivity not to go to Germany. Some Jews that went through the war have that sensitivity. So she felt that it's not okay for us to go before we get his permission. So she asked us to call or to speak to him, then we didn't have to call, he lived close to us, and ask him his feelings on the matter. So we went, and I thought I would have to present the whole case, Rav Vozna said, and it's all, we're in a tight spot with a medical issue. I didn't even have to, he said, get to the point. My grandfather doesn't like nonsense. Should give him a long life, he's not young, he's almost 100 years old. He said, get to the point, what do you want? So I told him, listen, we got advice from Rav Vozna to go to a grave of a tzaddik, he's buried in Germany. And Mom said that you may have a sensitivity or an objection to us going to Germany. So we want to, if you have a problem with it, we're not going, So we didn't book tickets and then come to you. We're coming to you to see what you feel, and based on that, we're going to decide what we want to do. And he said, I want to tell you two things. Number one, you should go either way. Even if it was for business, I would tell you to go. He said, I respect people who feel otherwise, but I can tell you my feelings. He says, my feelings are that if you don't go, that means they won and we lost, because until today we're scared of them. If you do go, that means no matter what they try to do to us, we still won. We're here to stay and they're gone. He said, so that's right off the bat. To the point that later on in his life, he went and deliberately bought a German car for that reason. He felt not to use German. What does that mean? That means that they won, that I'm still living in the shadow of their persecution. No, I'm not living. I'm Yisrael Chai V'Kayam. We survive everything. Again, other people felt very differently on this subject, and I'm not here to. Everybody has their sensitivities, and everybody's sensitivities on this, definitely on this matter, should be respected. But then he had another thing. He said, number two, I strongly encourage you to go specifically to this place. And he told me a mind-boggling thing. He said he and his friends, even though they were relatively young, and many of people that he knew, went to this grave right at the beginning of World War II to pray. Because they sensed that, there's a toxic environment in the air, we'll call it. Something's wrong. It's not good. So they went. And he says, everybody I know that went were all saved. Nobody died in the war. It's a wild thing. If you think about it, it's almost impossible to understand. Now the timing of his death is also very interesting. It's during Aseret Yimei Teshuvah, it's a very holy time. Yeah, Chazal discuss if somebody dies on Rosh Hashanah, if it's a good thing, bad thing, whatever, but Aseret Yimei Teshuvah is somewhere in the middle. But there's also discussion in the poskim. But it's a factual thing. This is when he passed away. Now a person doesn't pass away at a time for nothing. It has to be obviously a resemblance, and there's something that maybe we could learn from it as well. On the discussion of Aseret Yimei Teshuvah at large, in the Schem Shmuel, he brings down from Chazal, Bilam was hired by Balak to curse the Jewish nation. He tried to do it. At the end, whether you want to say the horse threatened him, or the donkey threatened him, or whatever, however you want to interpret the pshat and the psukim, he ended up blessing instead of cursing. Now we don't need his blessings either. We don't want anything, not as good and not as bad. But when he said whatever he said, the pasuk says in Bamidbar Chaf Gimel Chet, he said, "Ma'ikov lo kabo el." How can I curse if God didn't curse? It doesn't allow me to curse. U'ma'izom lo za'am Hashem. And how can I be angry? Which doesn't really mean be angry. It means utilize the anger. If God is not angry. Now Chazal say, what does this mean? The curse part we understand. He was hired to curse the Jews, fine. What is the anger? Where does the anger come into play? So Chazal say that Bilam had a very strategic plan. There were many people that Balak could have hired to curse Jews. When you have to talk bad about Jews, everybody's always willing. He could have hired CNN. They do it all day anyway. They probably would have paid him to do the job. He wouldn't have to pay them. So why did he pick Bilam? So first of all, Bilam was the greatest of the prophets by the Goyim. He had a level of prophecy of Moshe Rabbeinu, so it could be that's why. But Chazal said there was another reason. That there is a time, now again, this is not literal, I don't understand what this means exactly, nobody does. Obviously we have to be, after 120, when we're in Olam HaEmet, we'll understand what this means literally. But we should take it as a parable. There is some sort of period of the day, a very fractional moment. Now the reason why this can't be literal by default is because by God there's no time, He's above time. But again, it's a way of us understanding things, that whatever it means, God gets angry. And by default, God can't get angry. Anger is a flaw. God's not flawed. So all of this is just means of us being able to relate to things. And Bilam knew that time, we'll call it. And Chazal say, at that time, the Jews are in a very weak spot. Because normally Hashem protects the Jews from all harm. But at that time, Kavyachol, God is angry. When somebody's angry, He doesn't always protect. So He thought that He's going to gauge His curse to that moment, and He's going to put the two together, and that's how He's going to slide the curse through and be able to harm the Jewish nation. Based on this, Chazal said a little thing. He said, Ma'ikov lo kaboel. How can I curse? Because God doesn't agree to the curse. But the second part of the pasuk is the explanation. It's not an addition. He said, because my plan was to use the time that Hashem gets angry. But Ma'izom lo za'am Hashem. Hashem didn't get angry. There's no time to use. There was nothing to use. It was impossible. Come Chazal and say, why not? What do you mean? If Hashem Kavyachol gets angry every day, so what? He forgot. He lost his. So Chazal say, because Bilam tried to curse the Jews during Aseret Yimei Teshuvah. And in Aseret Yimei Teshuvah, Hashem doesn't get angry at the Jews. He only sees good in the Jews. And therefore he couldn't find the time. He tried. There was no time. No time, he had to step back. It's an unbelievable thing. So we're in the midst of days that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, everything's perfect. Here there's no power that can harm you, there's nothing that can do anything to you. Like the Pasuk says in Tehillim, right? I'm sure everybody knows this Rashi also. Tehillim Kuf Lametet Et Zayin. Yamim yutzaru velo echad bahem velo ispartu levav. Days were created, and one was for Him. What does it mean one was for him? So Rashi says, Zeh Yom HaKippurim L'Slicha. When Hashem created the days of the world, He took one day and He said, this day I'm leaving for myself. Yitzhara has no power, nobody has any power over Am Yisrael. Yom HaKippurim, that I forgive the Jewish nation. Even the Yitzhara has no power to come say anything bad about the Jews. So we see we're in a extremely holy time, but at the same time it's an extremely demanding time, because if you spoon feed somebody an opportunity and he messes it up, it's very hard to be sympathetic afterwards for him. If somebody needs a job and you offered him an amazing job with good work conditions and everything, and he doesn't show up to work the first day, it's very hard to feel bad for him afterwards when he's broke. You were spoon-fed everything. So Aseret Yimei Teshuvah is a time that HaKadosh Baruch Hu literally spoon-feeds us life. He gives it to us on a silver platter. So if somebody doesn't do something productive during Aseret Yimei Teshuvah, whatever, maybe so far that we have to say extra, we should feel even worse for him, but it's very hard. And that's why in Halakha it says, even if it's not real, fake it, but just do something better. Even if you don't mean it, fake it. It literally says that in Halakha. Right? The Torah brings down in Tafresh Gimel, based on the Yerushalmi. The Rav Chia used to visit Rav. Right? That's the way the Torah brings it down. And he says, and he told him, even if you can't eat all year chulin b'tara, but 7 days a year, you should eat chulin b'tara. As he says, 7 days a year, you should eat chulin b'tara. 1 week. So the Yerushalmi says in Masechet Shabbat, what does it mean? Rav Chia was telling him that it's not any week. The Torah explains the Yerushalmi this way. Rav Chia was telling him, the Torah says, Kibalti, he has a Kabbalah, that the Shivai Yamim, the 7 days that he was talking about that he should eat Chulim B'Tahara, is the 7 days between Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur. Those are the days that he should be makpid to eat Chulim B'Tahara. But wait a second, what happened to the other 3 days? Aseret Yimei Teshuvah. So the Torah makes a cheshbon. He only told him 7, he didn't tell him 10. He could have told him 10 for the same good, he was just telling him a fact. So just say 10 days. Aseret Yimei Teshuvah, be careful. So the Torah says a very simple calculation. He says the reason why he called it 7 days was because Rosh Hashanah, by default, he's eating Chulim B'Tahara. Because Chayav Adam L'Taher Atzmo Baregel. So he had to be a Tahor on Rosh Hashanah. So no matter what he's eating, it just has to be like that. Yom Kippur, he can't eat. So what's left? 7 days. So the Mele told him 7 days, because that's the only thing that's applicable. But in theory, really, it means the idea of Aseret Yimei Teshuvah. That's the way the Torah explains it. And that's why he warned them to eat Chulim B'Tahara. The Torah concludes this idea when he says it. Therefore, there was a custom in Ashkenaz. Sha'af mi she'eino nizar mipat shenochim bas. Sha'af mi she'eino nizar mipat shenochim. Even somebody who's during the year doesn't keep Pat Yisrael. Aseret Yimei Teshuvah hu nizar. In Aseret Yimei Teshuvah, he's careful, meaning he keeps it. By the way, it's the Shulchan Aruch. It's also brought down. Shulchan Aruch is brought down, not nochrim, kutim, but the same idea. She'af mi she'eino nizar mipat shel kutim, b'aseret yimei teshuvah tzarich lizayer. He doesn't say nagu this that. He says it's a fact. Even somebody who the whole year is not makpid on Pat Yisrael, b'aseret yimei teshuvah tzarich lizayer. He's obligated to keep it. And the Mishnah Berurah says over there in Halakha, I don't think it's only Pat akum. It's even Pat Palter, meaning commercial. Even that also during Aseret Yimei Teshuvah, a person's obligated. You should be makpid al kach. So we see that this has a very practical implication. That in Halakha it's telling you clearly, fake it. Motzei Kippur, you're going right back, business as usual. Erev Rosh Hashanah, also you're eating Pat Palter. But during Aseret Yimei Teshuvah, do it. So there's obviously a very big discussion, why it's like that at all, and if it's like that, what's the point, and whatever. The simple answer is from a pasuk. The pasuk says, Rabbi Salanta learns it this way, Ki shamai Elokim el kol anar ba'asher hu sham. That it says about Yishmael that Hashem heard his voice, ba'asher hu sham, where he was. What does it mean ba'asher hu sham? That he was there. Of course he was there. If he wasn't there, he would have not been in the problem in the first place. So Chazal learned out that even though the angels came and said, look at this Ishmael, why would you save him? His kids and his grandchildren are going to be terrorists, and they're going to end up causing destruction in the world, to the point that the Zohar says, Atid Lavo, in the times of Mashiach, people are going to cry, Vai lo el, from the tzarot that Ishmael are going to cause for the world, the ruckus that they're going to make in the entire world. And so what's the point in saving him? Let's eliminate the problem in the first place. And we can't say that there's no such idea. There is such idea. Ben soler o mored, nidon al Shem sofo. We do prevent disasters from happening. But Hashem said no. Right now, he's righteous still. So I have to judge him based on the facts today. What it's going to be tomorrow, what it was yesterday, that's something else. So Rabbi Yisrael says that's why the Tur and the Shulchan Aruch say this. He said, yeah, it's true, Motzei Kippur, whatever. I said this many times in a very cynical way, that I think that there's a very famous Zohar that says Yom HaKippurim, it's a day like Purim, that Purim is holier and whatever. I think it's Pshuto K'mashmao, Yom HaKippurim, it's a day like Purim. For one day, everybody puts on a white costume, plays holy, and 24 hours later, we're back to square one. Yeah. So on Purim, there's a hangover. On Motzei Kippur, there's a little whatever, caffeine deficiency. Same idea. That's really what it narrows down to. So be'etzim, it should be a very sad thing. But based on what we're saying, it's not a sad thing at all. At that moment, a person does have a Yirut Tshuva. At that moment, a person does have a thing. By the way, Rabbi Tzadok Blazer says, that's why, right, in the Gemara over there, it says that when the Katzav, when the butcher didn't ask for forgiveness after insulting the rabbi, so and he came to Ma'alei Yom HaKippurim, so they said when he was walking to him that he's going to kill him now, something bad's going to happen to him. What does it mean he's going to kill him? Because the time, Abitzal explains, because the time is so holy, if during the year he would have not asked for forgiveness, maybe he would have got away with it. In Shamayim he would have not, but in the interim, in this world. But Dafka said because the time was so holy, and he insulted Kvod HaTorah, and he had to rectify it, and he didn't rectify it, so the fact that it's so holy, on one hand works in your advantage, but on the other hand, Baminan can also work against you. And in this case, it worked against him. So that's why, Yizayah means be careful. That's a very, very big blanket statement that I think we should apply to everything. During the year, all different things we do. But Aseret Yimei Tshuva, we could do without. Think twice. Think twice. I'll give you a very shallow but technical example. Moshe Feinstein Zatzal has a tshuva that he discusses about whiskey, if you could drink whiskey from sherry cask or not. Moshe holds that it's perfectly fine, and most of the American Jewry, all the years, always relied on that. Now I know that people that came with all different theories that, fine. First question to ask is if they ever went to see how it's made, if they even know what the discussion is. But there was such a thing. So I'll tell you, Meiser Rav from today. I was leaving the house and I was going to take a couple of bottles of whiskey for tonight, for the Suda, the Chvod HaTzadik. Now I don't have cheap Glenlivet bottles, Baruch Hashem. In my house we're machmit to drink properly. If you're doing it, do it right. So I saw a nice expensive bottle of Macallan, not a 12. We like numbers that are good. 1 time chai, 2 times chai, whatever. Should be something chaticha ruya litkabed. And I said, no, Hillula for a tzaddik. No, let's take something extra special.
Where's the bottle?
And bring. And then I said to myself, wait a second. I said there were many poskim that said that you shouldn't drink sherry cask. I said, you made tshuva? No, can't do it. I don't know what it is. I have no idea. I didn't bring it. It has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with me. I didn't bring it.
It's not. It says
ex-sherry. But Al Kol Panim, here's a trivial example. There's a lot of things like that. Now it's going to be Shabbat Tshuva. There are many things that on Shabbat, especially by Sfaradim, we have many, many Aterim, those who go by Chamavazit Psakim. There's leniencies from here to the sky and back. But there were many Gdolei Olam that were extremely against it. And he was a Da'at Yachid on many things. One of the classic examples is using a bar of soap. He was really a dat yachid on that. It's you have to squeeze heta after heta after heta and push and change until you get to that conclusion. It's whatever. Yeah, I don't know how you get. I don't even know how you reach it with all of that. Most of the poskim wrote not like that. And so, if somebody wants to rely on it a whole year, Ovadia was a big posek. There's no doubt about it. Fine, he has what to be somech on, contingent to the fact that he follows everything else like Ovadia. Meaning he keeps Rabbeinu Tam and whatever. Yeah. No, you can't pick and choose. It doesn't work like that. Mikuli de Sham and Kuli de Hillula, like Moses is very harsh words about. But well, I don't know if it's in America. In Israel, Blipeot, whatever. Yeah, you can't pick and choose. But in Asayit Yimei Tshuva and Shabbat Tshuva, if you don't use a bar of soap, it's going to kill you. It won't kill you. Use liquid soap. You'll live. I promise you. So why not? The same thing in everything in halacha. It's could do it a little bit better. So why not? You have to make this calculation to understand. But because if you understand that the flip side is, God forbid, the other way around. It's such a holy time that Hashem says, I gave it to you, so what'd you ruin it for? So then you understand. But then I said I wanted to explain. I don't know this as a fact. This is just my feelings. I'm just telling you what my instincts are. They may be completely off. Hashem made that the Baal Shem from Michelshtadt should pass away during Asayit Yimei Tshuva. It has to have a resemblance. Now we know, for all the generations to come, we know that it's brought down, it's actually Nogei Halacha, it's interesting, that on the day of Yortzeit of a tzaddik, then whatever it means, in Shamayim the posek halacha kmoto. Now it doesn't mean that in Bedin they suddenly change the halachot, no, but whatever that means spiritually, in heaven they're posek halacha like him. That's why people go to graves of tzadikim primarily on Yortzeits, because then in Shamayim, whatever the tzaddik says goes, so it's a lot easier to obtain good things as a result. It's a much more powerful time to obtain good things. So the Baal Shem Michelshtatt's big koach in the world was, besides for his, I'm not talking about his sitkut and his spiritual levels, that we'll never understand 1% of. But on a practical implication, his big koach in this world was the fact that he was able to heal people emotionally. Somebody was going through a hard time, somebody was sad, somebody was not stable, whatever. He was able to heal people emotionally. My instincts are, HaKadosh Baruch Hu did a chesed with Klal Yisrael, that his Yortzeit came before Yom Kippur, that people that connect with his neshama and do things l'idui nishmato and whatever else, Hashem heals them. So when they come into Yom Kippur, they're healed people and they come out of Yom Kippur in a better place than they went in. And I mean that very seriously. It's when somebody's upset and angry and sad and hurt, you can't connect with anything, definitely not with Hashem. The person's in so much pain, there's nothing left. That's why Hashem made Rosh Hashanah to be a Yom Tov, not a scary day. If Rosh Hashanah was a scary day, then people would give up before it started. It's a Yom Tov, it's a happy day, because then we have a chance to connect. We have a chance. So people, their souls are healed a little bit throughout Asayit Yimei Tshuva, so then Yom Kippur could be a day that actually produces some sort of benefit, spiritually, mentally, materialistically, in every way, for the rest for the coming year. But if the soul itself at the core is not, so then it's a big problem. And by the way, I'm sure most of you have heard this throughout the years in different forums, because I repeat this a lot, but just in case anybody didn't, or even if you did, we have to repeat from the tzaddik, this idea of going specifically to the Baal Shem from Michelshtatt's grave is not a regular idea of the way we go to other kivot tzadikim. It was a very specific will that he left. And it's very interesting why. So historically, and this was the second thing that I think stood out, where he was different than many others, the Baal Shem Michelshtatt had two marriages. His first marriage was very short. After a few years, I think it was 7 years, his wife died after having 5 children. Now in the 1700s to have 5 healthy children is also, by the way, a huge miracle. It wasn't so common. Right? It was the pre-antibiotic era, and whatever, the tiniest thing used to kill a child. But he had 5 healthy children, and all under the age of 6, and his wife passed away. He was left, he was a rabbi of a city, And he was left with 5 young kids, alone. How's he going to raise them? What's he going to do? And he was poor also. The whole thing didn't work. The kids, it wasn't going to happen. So they tried, and the community helped him, and this and that. Back then, it was also, people felt very liable for each other. So kids, when you tell me that, so immediately people kicked in to do whatever they can. But it's not the same. It's, now the kids are scattered. This one takes care of it on Sunday, this one on Monday. That doesn't have a tzura. That's not a way that, it doesn't make any sense. So his goal was to get remarried. Now the Maaseh, he had a problem getting remarried. And believe it or not, it wasn't that he had 5 kids. That wasn't the issue. The issue was it was Europe. It was the beginning of, not exactly the Haskalah, but the pre-Haskalah era, but the idea of that. And there were no women that wanted to cover their hair. And he wasn't willing to get married to a woman that wasn't going to cover her hair. Now you would think he's in a critical situation. He has 5 young kids. They need a mother. That should be enough of a reason to say. And back then women didn't go out much also. So just round it off, not the end of the world. Nothing doing. Gonna stay alone or raise the kids. Not gonna. And as much as they tried for him and this and that, nobody was willing to. It was a different era. Today when we see girls covering their hair, that's big Kiddush Hashem. Just a few years ago, it was unheard of. It was only Yechidim that did it. People couldn't deal with it. They were against it, not just did it. So it's an unbelievable thing. It's an amazing accomplishment. And he went, this we actually know from a German medical journal. He went to a specific mental health hospital that was in a town called Friedberg. And by the way, Rashi's parents lived in Friedberg for a while. Just random fact. No, the reason why it might have an implication is because the mikveh that Rashi's mother made in Friedberg in order to use the mikveh still exists until today. And for the right price, you can actually go in. Not to a Jewish organization, to whatever, to the people who run it over there. It's an interesting, I don't know if it has any meaning. Maybe it's only sentimental, but it's a very interesting experience to be able to use the mikveh that Rashi's mother made herself. There is a Hasidic Rebbe that I know from Israel who flies there very, very frequently. And he literally lands in Frankfurt Airport, goes to Friedberg, uses the mikveh, goes back to the airport, goes back to Israel. It's a very interesting thing. It's worth it for him, the whole hassle, a whole day, just to be able to use... No, it's a different city. It's about 20... Rashi's mother made the mikveh. Before Rashi was... they say Rashi was born from that place. Interesting. But that's Stam, side note. But... so the Baal Shem used to go to this hospital that was in that town. That was a mental health hospital, a psych ward, we'll call it. The whole hospital was meant for people that... And over there was a Jewish woman who was 39 years old. And she had... she wasn't well. And he helped her a lot. He took care of her. To the point that even though the doctor said she's crazy and it's over, she ain't coming back, as they say. Very quickly, she was a 100% healthy, normal person. Everything was fine. She left the hospital. Here she went in nuts. Now she's normal. So she owes her life to the Baal Shem. So when she left the hospital, she said that she wants to pay him back. But how's she going to pay him back? What's she going to give him? So she decided that she'll agree to cover her hair, and then he'll be able to marry her, and she'll take care of his kids, and that'll be the way to pay him back. So she went in with that offer. She said that she thought about it, and she'll cover her hair, and she'll get married to him, and she'll take care of the kids, and that'll solve the problem. And the Baal Shem told him no. Told her no. She thought maybe he's saying no. When I say Baal Shem, let's just stress, Baal Shem Michelshtadt, not the Baal Shem Tov that people know. There were 9 people historically that were called Baal Shem. So and he thought that she thought that the reason he's saying no is because probably, she has a mental health history. He was the one who healed her, so he doesn't want to marry somebody with such a history. So she asked him openly. Today we think we have to be politically correct. We walk on eggshells around everybody. It's a crazy world. There was a day that people just spoke honestly and openly and they figured things out without all the drama around. So she asked him, is that the reason? They said, no, God forbid, you're the healthiest of healthy today. What does it make a difference what it was? Has nothing to do with it. So she said, so what's the reason? So he said, I only have 5 children. I want to have more children. Back then in your high 30s, people didn't have children anymore. So I can't get married. I need to get married to somebody. So now the demands went up. It's not like somebody who covers their hair. So you can have more kids with. He said, that's not in my hands. That's Bidei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's already not... so it stayed like that. She came back 2 days later, and she said that she found him a shidduch. Found me a shidduch? Yeah, who's the shidduch? So he says she has a daughter who's 17 years old. And the daughter said she'll marry him, and she'll cover her hair. And she could have kids.
How old was he? How old was he?
What?
How old was he?
He was then in his upper 30s. Yeah, he didn't live that long. He died in his 50s, young 50s. And all tzadikim that were in that hemisphere died very young. Nachman, Michelshtadt, they all died young. Arizal, they all died very young. When you live in a certain world, you don't belong to this world. So by default, you go back to your origin quickly. Kol panim, yes, listen to this, it's amazing. So he said, fine, she's going to cover her hair, yeah. She wants a Torah family, yeah. Pshat Tova, they get married. They get married. They get married, and he has 5 more children. Now he has 10 kids. 10 kids with a 25-year-old, 26-year-old girl that's taking care of the 10 kids. And he gets very sick. And the doctor said that his months or whatever it is are numbered. So he was in bed, he was very sick. And his second wife, meaning this young girl, the mother of 5 of her own and 5 that she's raising for him, comes to him by his deathbed crying and says, my dear husband, it's very nice that you want to die, or maybe that, I don't know what, but that's not going to work right now. Because I got 10 children to take care of. And surprise, surprise, back in the day, men felt obligated to be breadwinners. The man went and brought panosa. So he was a rov, and he made whatever salary, and the community helped him. That's it. She didn't have an income. Said, now how am I going to support the family? What's going to be? So your problem. So he told her like this: life and death is not in a man's hands. Kodesh Baruch Hu decides how long a person is going to live for. But this I can promise you. This I can promise you. That if I pass away, bury me near the house. His house is only a few blocks away from where he's buried. His house is still preserved until today as a historic site. And whenever you need anything, come to my grave, and I will take care of it immediately, better than when I was alive. And that's when he wrote in his will to write that when people come to me, I'll take care of them. That's where this whole idea came from. And as the years went by, his wife wrote different things that later on people got a hold of. They weren't even manuscripts. They were personal diaries that she wrote for herself, not for any purpose, of many incidents that she had with the children throughout her life. And she used to go to the grave, and immediately as she was there, it was solved. And some of the incidents are along the lines of a child wasn't feeling well, and she was going to go to the doctor, but before she went to the doctor, she went to the grave, which was only a couple of blocks from where she lived. She went to the grave, and then she went back home to take the kid to the doctor, but the kid was already healthy, so there was no doctor needed. And that's the way she lived her entire life from there on. It was an unbelievable thing. She never got remarried. And she lived her entire life from there on, just like that. That it was based on this thing of Rabim Noshu Al Yado. Now, Gdolim tzadikim v'mitatam yotem b'chayim. And so people ask, so why him? Right? There were Tanaim, Amoraim, Gdolei Olam, different generations and all, can't compare. Why him? So I don't know, but the closest thing to an answer that we have is very simple. It's very, I'm not talking about for money as a profession. I'm talking about for chesed with heart. It's not an easy task to have patience and care and compassion for people that are struggling mentally and emotionally. It can be extremely draining. It can be extremely emotionally. It can take a big toll, and it's very hard to see success. And it needs unlimited patience. And the fact that he was so successful just shows how compassionate he was, and how much he cared about each and every person in every situation. When we choose our circle of friends, we normally choose the rich, the famous, the popular. Those are the people we want to surround ourselves with. It's convenient, it's comfortable, and it's cool, and it's fun. Everybody, we pick people relatively within our circles that are equally, if not more, successful than us and doing well and this and that and popular, and that's who we want to surround ourselves with. To the point that the Western world went and said, tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are. That's how far we took it. We even turned this into a cult. When the Baal Shem from Michelshtadt picked his friends, he picked people that were struggling. He said, the people that are doing well don't need me as a friend. They have too many friends. They could get rid of a few. The people that are struggling are the ones that need me. So a person like that who lived his life choosing to surround himself with those in need to better their quality of life, Hashem gave him the power that from Shemayim he was able to continue his life mission. And he's able to help whoever comes to him in need and needs help. His merits are able to stand. Dafka in Aseret Yimei Tshuva, which is a time that Klal Yisrael needs the most help. And people need the most protection and the most security and the most miracles. Because we need to come out okay. We need to come out on top once Yom Kippur is over. Dafka then, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, I'm going to pick one of those days and give the Jewish nation a merit that there's going to be a tzaddik who we're going to be posek the halacha like him, who's compassionate to the needs of each and every person, no matter what his struggles are. That's a very, very big zchut. It's in the fact that when Michelshtadt and Sudat Hillula of such a tzaddik, Shemayim makes a big rosha, makes a very big impact. The tzaddik owes us akarat hatov, as it says in the Ari, and I'm sure he's going to be a big mashpia and a big melitz yosher in Shemayim to reciprocate the minor actions that we do over here, Lilu Nishmato, in a very big way, and he should be a melitz yosher, and the whole Klal Yisrael knows, Bezrat Hashem, and especially on those that over the years were either went to his grave or were supportive of others that went to his grave, and those who didn't. Hopefully Mashiach will be here before, so he won't have a chance, but if not, it's a very good idea. I can tell you miracle stories from here to the sky. I don't really see the point in saying miracle stories, but amongst the many, I took a group in, I think this was 2013, of 16 people. The youngest was 30-something, but most of them were in their high 30s, 40s maybe even some. They were all single and never married and whatever, and each one with a story. And not simple marriages to happen, let's just say. Very complex situations. And we went on Erev Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, because I believe that I try to go every Erev Rosh Chodesh, year round. COVID stopped that for a while, but yeah, Baruch Hashem. And we were able to go again already. And except for obviously Erev Rosh Hashanah, which then we go to the Motzei Rosh Hashanah. So it comes out 12 times a year to go. At least. A lot of times it's more than that. If there's a problem at work, I don't call the accountant or the lawyer. I go to the Baal Shem. By the time I come back, it's solved already. It's not even a question by me. It's so simple. It's not. I once a silly example, but these are things that we relate to because they're things that we deal with every day in business. I put in an offer on a house that I wanted to buy, and it was a very aggressive offer. Let's just say. 30% under their ask. That's on the aggressive side. But I had a reason why I wanted it for something, and I thought I could make money there. And it wasn't only the specific thing, it was a puzzle. It would fill a puzzle for me that would be very beneficial in many ways. So in theory, I would even overpay for it. But first I said, let me try the Jewish way. Let me put in an aggressive ask. So I put in the ask. The broker didn't even listen to the whole story. Like, really? That was the response, really? And my response was, in 2 days from now, when you need me, call me back. I'll see if I'm still willing to give you that amount. And I hung up. And that evening, this conversation was at like 2 in the afternoon. I took a 6 p.m. flight. I flew to Michelshtadt. I got there at 7:20 in the morning local time. I went to the pray shacharit, and I went to the grave. And I said, I came to pray that this will help me in a few things. I need this to go through. And I said I was generous by asking for only 30 under. I think maybe a little better. We could do a little better than that. I came back. The following morning from when I came back, I'm talking less than 48 hours, the broker calls me back, says, can you do an immediate closing? I said, yeah. He said, the person's cash strapped, needs the money for something else urgently and whatever. If you're willing to do an immediate closing, what's your best offer? So I pushed my limits. We went 35 under. I said, you got it, closed. And we did an immediate closing. So I told the partners that were with me on this thing, I said, no, look, the ticket to go cost $4,000. Saved a nice chunk of change. It was a good business expense, I think. It was a worthwhile. Now, that's a very silly story, obviously, right? That's not what's important in life. But these are things that we relate to because we're constantly wheeling and dealing all day. And now, sometimes you have a emunah pshuta that the schus of a tzaddik that you have a connection with is going to bring you Yeshua. In medical things, we've seen there's no way to explain. First and foremost, the first time I was there was for my mother. My brother Bli Ein Hara is alive and well, married with a family and everything, and has a very good life, Baruch Hashem. And this is the baby that they said would never be born, and even if he's born, would be with medical issues from here to the sky and back. Hashem should help further. So that was right off the bat. And then over the years, the one that stands out to me most, now, I used to say the name, now he asked me to stop saying a name, I'm not sure why, maybe because he has kids in Shidduch, whatever. But there's a gentleman who sometimes comes here to the shul to pray. Many of you know him, you just don't know his story. About, it's either 17 or 18 years ago, I think it was 17 years ago. Young guy, healthy, everything, married with a couple of kids. One morning, has a stroke, is paralyzed in his right side. Normally you're paralyzed on the left side, not you ain't even know it should ever happen, no, but he was paralyzed in his right side. Schem Yerachim. Half his body gone, young guy. Has young kids at home, just got, relatively newlywed, a few years. His life's destroyed. Kids, so they called me, they said, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? I said, listen, medically, I don't know. You have the best doctors in the world. What do you want me to tell you? So I said, no, we don't need you for medical advice. Spiritually, what do we do? I said, I'm not under the Baal Ruach HaKodesh. What do you want from me? Ask Rav Chaim Kanievsky. He has Ruach HaKodesh. He'll tell you. I don't know. But Yashu was still alive then. Ask Rabbi Yashu. He'll tell you. So I said, what would you do? If you had a situation that, I said, don't curse me, please. Thank you very much. Be careful how you talk. The Gemara says you have to be very cautious the way you speak. But for any problem that I have in my life, I go to the Baal Shem Michelshtadt cave. So they said, okay, but he's paralyzed. He can't go. I said, he has a brother? Yeah. So let him go. So the brother calls me a few minutes later. He says, I want to go. Would you come with me? I said, what do you need me to come with you? You're a big boy. Go. I said, I never went to Germany. I don't know the language. I don't know my way around. I don't know this. I don't know that. All the excuses. So look how the Eitzah is fooling you. I said, but if you want, yeah, I'll come with you, no problem. I just got one condition. You pay for the expenses, and I only fly first class. No. What don't we do for health, right? He agreed immediately. It wasn't even a question. It's cheaper than doctor bills. And we went to the cave. First we went to some local mikveh in Frankfurt, then we went to Daven Shachris, then we went to the cave. That was, once he came, I already told two other people also needed Yeshuas and other things that they should tag along. I said, we're already going. We'll have to go a few times for that, each one separately. We'll make a package deal here. We went, we'll buy the cave. We decided that we're going to read the whole Tehillim. Everybody, each one of us is going to read the whole Tehillim. It'll take 2 hours, and then we'll leave. That was the decision when we came. About halfway through the Tehillim, his phone is ringing off the hook. And he sees it's his sister-in-law's number. And his heart drops. Brother just had a stroke. It's a couple of days later. Those of you who are medical professionals understand the risks involved. And he was scared to pick up. He hands me the phone. He says, you pick up. He says, this can't happen. You pick up. So I picked up, and I picked up with a smile on my face. I said, how can I help you? And she's crying, and then I said, oh, maybe that was the wrong way to pick up the phone. I was a little nervous. Maybe that wasn't the smartest way to pick up after all. And she says, it's unbelievable. And I said, what's unbelievable? My husband's walking around. He's fine. I said, what do you mean he's fine? I didn't believe it at that point. So what do you mean he's fine? So I knew it works, but I got to take a few months, not... He's fine, he's walking around, like nothing ever happened. So he has a little bit drooping face or whatever, but other than that, everything's as perfect as could be. Mind clear, everything clear, body work, everything clear. I said, and we're only halfway through the Tehillim, wait a minute. Let's finish the Tehillim, maybe the face will fix too. I think by then we made a 9-0, it didn't happen. Okay, what should we do? But at least the important parts were done. That's the guy that prays here sometimes. You all know who he is. And live, not live. That's the koch that Hashem gave to tzadikim, that gave their life for others. That's literally the koch that Hashem gave to tzadikim, that gave their life to others. And I end up with a Gaon Mevilna that says, because we spoke about how you're allowed to go to Chutzlaretz, and we mentioned the Chidah, so the Gaon says an interesting fact. The Gaon is written twice, once in Biur and once in Biur on Safed Tzniuta. Once in Halacha and once in Kabbalah. And the Gaon both times writes roughly these words: Miyam shenechav Beit HaMikdash, from the day the temple was destroyed. Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu shechet shchinato, God doesn't dwell ela b'dalad amotav me'al kivot tzadikim, and the 4 amot on kivot tzadikim.
What?
That since the temple was destroyed, where does Hashem dwell? In the dalad amot and the 4 amot right on kivot tzadikim. And that's why, in one of the 2 places, the Gaon takes us a step further and writes that the karka, the land around the cave of a tzaddik, has kedushat Eretz Yisrael, has the kedusha of Eretz Yisrael, because Hashem is there. Hashem is there. In Chutzlaretz he's talking about. In Israel, of course, it has in Chutzlaretz. So I said, but don't quote me on this, because it's a little far-fetched already, that if that's the case, the Gemara says that if somebody walks down the Amot Beretz Yisrael, so Mochalim Lo Kol Avonotav. So I have a good eitzah for everybody before Yom Kippur. Go to Monsi, to the Riznitz's Rebbe's cave, make hakafot around the cave. You're on Karka Beretz Yisrael, you walk down the Amot, and you have the Schus of the Tzaddik also say a few Prakim at Tehillim, and Hashem will help. You'll be in good shape. I don't know. I'm not sure why I'm saying this on YouTube, but instinctively, I don't see why not. Honestly, the Gaon said that it has a kedusha Eretz Yisrael, and the Gemara said. But definitely the schus of a tzaddik will help, that's for sure. So Kadosh Baruch Hu should help. Schut tzaddik again v'adeinu. Hashem should protect us from all harm, and we should be blessed with a happy and healthy and successful new year, full of simcha, bracha, tzlacha, yitzlav, nechama, with all the brachot and the Torah be'ezrat Hashem, and everything you need should happen quickly, happily, and easily. All the best.